Hey everyone, it's Brennan. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. Today I am going to be talking about my favorite thrillers of all time. I have narrowed this down to a list of 10. I am reasonably new to reading thrillers. I read several last year and I made an entire video ranking every single thriller that I read in 2021. So I will link that below. But other than that, I had only read a handful of thrillers. So some of these may be super familiar to you if you've been around on my channel for the last year or so, which is also crazy to think about that I've been making these videos for over a year. That's for another time. But anyway, we will go ahead and get started, and these are in no particular order. I like them all for pretty different reasons. I say that, but this first book may be my favorite in general. This is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I also may have some rose-colored glasses for this because this is the first true thriller style book that I read. I listened to the audio. I'm pretty sure Julia Whalen is Amy in the audio. And then for Nick Dunn, there's a different actor. So it was just such a production, such a high quality audiobook. But this is a thriller. Our setup, our plot of this is we are following Nick Dunn. He is kind of a bit of a low life. He owns this bar and he has dragged his New York City wife, Amy, back to Missouri to help run it. I think he inherited some money and then he bought a bar with it. It's been a while since I read this. But then one day he goes to work and then he comes home and Amy is gone. So, you know, the police come, they are investigating, they're getting involved, and he is the number one suspect. He is the husband of this missing wife. And then we get a dual perspective, and we get some diary entries from Amy. So we are just here for the mystery of what happened to Amy, what was their relationship like, and I will be the first to say, I love Amy Dunn. I think she is a truly amazing character in this book. And I will also say this is a book of unlikable characters. So if you love a nice, not even morally gray, but just completely characters maybe without morals at all, pick this book up. And then obviously Razorblade Tears is another top favorite. This is by S.A. Cosby. I have gone on and on and on about this book. Comment a tear emoji down below if you have heard me talk about this book before. This was my favorite book that I read in 2021. I suppose this is classified as a thriller, but truly this is more like suspense, action. This is a revenge story. We are following two dads who had sons who they had bad relationships with. Their sons were gay and their sons were married to each other, and their dads were not very supportive or accepting of their life. And these dads also have some criminal backgrounds. These are some hardened men. And their sons are murdered, and they just kind of drop everything for revenge. They go on this killing spree basically together, and there's also a lot of good like racial discussions because one of the dads is black and one is white, and then obviously they have sons who were gay. So there's just a lot of amazing social stuff going on in this. And then we're just following them as they do really awesome, very actiony, very violent things together, but we're also figuring out why their sons got murdered, what's going on. This is amazing. This is very, very good. I can't wait to read more from S.A. Cosby. I read Blacktop Wasteland by him also, and whatever else this man comes out with, I cannot wait to pick it up. And then another one of my favorite books that I read last year is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. This is more, I guess you can call it romantic suspense. There's not a huge amount of romance in this, but there is like a small love triangle, possibly love square. I'm not sure. Our main character, Finlay, she has a couple love interests, but she's an author, she's a mom, she's a recently divorced wife, and she writes romantic suspense. Well, she is meeting with her agent at a Panera Bread, and they're discussing the plot to her newest book, and she is overheard by this woman who then thinks that Finlay is actually a hit woman. She thinks that she kills people, and she offers Finlay lots of money to kill her husband. And Finlay's in a position where she may be a little tempted to accept this, and things just spiral from there. This is so much fun. This is a little bit more light-hearted of a book, but it's actually very intense and it's very actiony, very fast-paced. And Finlay's babysitter gets pulled into this and is like super on board to help out with it, and it's just so much fun, and I can't wait for the second book in this series to come out this year. And then this is a recent read. You all have probably not heard me talk about this. I listened to it in like a day. This is Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. I completely read this because I've heard Haley Hughes talk about it. This is so good. I could not stop. The setup of this book is we are following a woman. She's in her mid-30s. She's this successful vice president of this company. She's like a very young executive in this company. But some stuff from her past gets pulled back up and she has to go to jail. She was an accessory to a murder when she was a teenager, like 16 or something. And new things are coming up in this case. They found the murderer, who is actually this serial killer, but he was also our main character's boyfriend when she was a teenager. And now she is having to go to prison to serve 5 years for her role in this murder many years ago, like 14 years ago at this point. And what I loved so much about this was the time we got to spend with our main character while she was in prison. Like, I loved seeing a women's prison dynamic and just like the power moves she has to make and the friendships that she makes while she's in prison too. Truthfully, that was my favorite part of this book, was how much we spent with her when she was in prison. So this book spans a few years because we are with her when she's being sentenced. We're with her a bit throughout her sentence. And then the main plot of this book takes place when she is released. So once she is released, some more murders start happening. And one of the detectives who she was also friends with when she was in high school, but now he's like the detective on the case, we are following him and what he's doing, and maybe he can be a little bit of a love interest. And this book was just so much fun. I say that. This was actually really, really dark also. Like, very Criminal Minds-esque. But I loved this so much. So we are just figuring out what's happening in these present day murders. And then we're also getting some flashbacks to what actually happened the night her friend was murdered, that she was a part of. This was a wild ride. And there's obviously some twists and turns in here. And I didn't expect any of them, which I usually don't. Like, if I can call a twist in a book, that author needs to try harder. But I love this book so much. A new favorite thriller. And then I want to talk about The Last Mrs. Parrish by Liv Constantine. This book is so popular. Was it a Reese Witherspoon pick? It might have been. This book is so popular. You've probably heard about it. You've probably heard me talk about it. This is a domestic, like, rich people drama, and it is so much fun. So we're following this con artist, basically, and she is wanting to steal this very wealthy Daphne Parrish, her husband. So she is pretending to be someone else. She's taken on this persona and she is becoming friends with Mrs. Parrish. So we're following that storyline, and then, you know, we kind of have the halfway twist and we kind of start following a different storyline. I don't really want to say anything else about this. I went into this not knowing a lot about the plot, and you should too, but I loved it. This goes to say for most of these books, like, if you're sensitive to certain triggers in books, just like give it a quick Google for trigger warnings, because this has some pretty disturbing scenes portrayed in it, so just be aware, don't be surprised. But this was a great thriller, another one that I just absolutely could not put down. And then I want to talk about For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. This is more dark academia. We are following some professors and some students at this very prestigious high school. So one of our professors, his name's Teddy. He is just a slimy guy. He has personal issues, but he blames his personal issues on anyone around him. Nothing he does and nothing that happens to him is his fault. And then he develops an interest in plant poisons and likes to play tricks on some of his coworkers, and he also resents his students a lot. He resents the parents, and something happens and things spiral from there, and we get viewpoints from a few different people. We kind of have some surprising people come in. We have some characters do surprising things, and I loved this. This was another one that I just could not put down. I was surprised by everything that happened. I was like, no way. Like, that played in my head a lot of the times when things were happening in this book. I thought, no freaking way. but I loved this. I have loved every Samantha Downing book that I've read. Have I read? Wait, have I only read 2? I also like her other book, My Lovely Wife, but it didn't quite make this list. But what did make this list was The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. This is one of those books that just took so many sharp turns, like completely turned from what I thought was going to happen in this. The setup of this book is we're following a man who has found out that his wife is cheating on him, and he's in an airport, and he just so happens to run into a woman who is willing to help him get rid of his wife. She's like completely on board for this. And then we get some of her backstory and just interesting things in her life that have happened that have made her the right person for this job. And like I said, this was another one that I just could not believe the things that were happening, the twists and the turns. I thought, how could we possibly go from here? But I loved this. The ending of it kind of hurt me a little bit. I was kind of hoping for something else just because I really start rooting for some of these characters. Like really want the best for them, even though I absolutely should not want anything good to happen for them. But I loved this, and you don't need to know a lot before you go into it. And then I have Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This book, it makes me laugh a little bit because our main character is so dumb. Like, let me tell you the premise of this. So our main character, Jules, is down on her luck. She's got no place to live. She has very little money. I think she's in New York City. She's in a big city. And she gets the too good to be true opportunity to be an apartment sitter at this very prestigious apartment building. They don't like to let their apartments sit empty after a tenant leaves. So they offer Jules the opportunity to basically just live in this apartment and be paid. But there's some secrets in this apartment. The people who live there, you are not supposed to interact with them. You're not supposed to share the identity of any of the people who live there. There's some more like famous, wealthier type people living there. And Jules is really bad at following that rule, and it makes me really uncomfortable. Like everything she does just made me so uncomfortable. The choices that she made. But we have to further the plot, right? Like we have to have some excitement. We have to have some action. So she just gets into some truly traditional horror movie type predicaments. But I loved this, and when we found out some more secrets about the apartment building, I was blown away. I loved how this book ended. I thought it was so good, and I think you should pick it up if you want just a good mystery thriller. Okay, these last 2 I read a while ago. Like these are some of the first books I probably ever read. And one of them is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. And that is so funny for me to say because this book is so graphic and there is big sexual abuse in here. And I read this when I was probably like 14. You know, just trying to be an edgy teenager. And I read this whenever I had a Nook and I could just like read things without anyone seeing the cover of what I was reading. That's also how I read 50 Shades of Grey. Anyway, this is such a traditional thriller. Obviously there are movies about this. And this is more of a reporter type thriller. So one of our main characters is a magazine reporter, Mikhail Blomkvist. This is very European. Like I want to say Sweden? Is that right? Let me know. So he's a magazine reporter, but he reports on like big stories. But he's had some issues. So he's had like a libel, like slander case on him. So he has kind of lost his job, but he's still involved in this magazine. But he has the opportunity to take on some more just like private cases. So this man hires him to do some investigating on what happened to his sister who went missing years ago, like years and years ago, like probably 40 years ago. So she's like a cold case and she went missing from this island when something was happening. It was like a very closed door, like isolated type thriller. Like they're having an event and then the road closes and then she's gone. So he's investigating into that, but we are also following Lisbeth Salander. And she is such an interesting character. So she has a ward, like she is, I don't know what the European term is, but in America she would be like a ward of the state. Like she does not have capacity to make her own like financial decisions. So she is being abused basically by her government appointed caretaker, but not like really caretaker. He just like does her financial stuff, and he uses his power in a horrible way from her. But she is also very vengeful. Like, she's actually so smart and she's so vengeful. And she and our reporter end up crossing paths. And they both have different skills that can help them get what they want. And we find out this mystery of this missing girl is the plot for this first book, but then this is a series and it just kind of goes more into different crime organizations and each of our characters' pasts, and it's really, really good. I don't talk about this book a lot because I read it so long ago. This is one of the only books that I've read more than once because it's just so good. And the last book I'll talk about, and also another book that I have read more than once. Maybe I have read this book 3 times. It's just been in my life for so long. This is Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz, and this is more of a paranormal thriller. So Odd, our main character in this series, this is like an 8-book series, but each of the books is pretty different, and the first book is just so good. But our character Odd, he can see ghosts. And these ghosts come to him. They can't communicate with him like verbally, but a lot of the times they come to him when they have had a suspicious death. So he kind of helps the police figure out what happened to these people. And he also has this ability when like a mass murder is going to happen, like a shooting or a natural disaster. When something like that is about to happen, he can see these figures. They're basically like these entities that then feed off the negative energy from disasters. So he starts seeing these, and then he's trying to prevent what he knows is going to happen. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but he knows something's going to happen. And he is trying to figure this out. He's trying to save people. We have a little bit of romance. He's got a girlfriend in here. Her name is Stormy. Is that her name? Is she the original Stormy? Stormy Llewellyn. Isn't that a pretty name? And the ghost of Elvis is in here. That sounds kind of like hokey. It's not. This is a very dark and very serious series, but it's also like very dry humor. Like, some things in here are just so funny, and Odd is just such an awesome character. But yeah, this is a great time. This has ghosts in it. This has demons in it. Both the paranormal and the just like real human demons, you know, like just bad people. This has all that, and this series is so good. I don't talk about it a lot, again, just because I have read it so long ago, but this is one of the best books and just like most impactful books that I have read in my life. But those are the 10 best thrillers that at this point in my life I have read. I'm still reading lots of thrillers, so I wanted to have this video to look back on to see what some of my favorite books were at this time, because I'm just reading so many that I know it will change and I'll always be having new favorites. But let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. Let me know your top #1 favorite thriller of all time. Please comment that down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one.